Welcome back to Cyclone InCYders. Matt Van Winkle, and joined in studio by a special guest. You guys may know him as the Iowa Nice guy on YouTube. His name is Scott Siepker. Scott, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
No problem, Matt. Thanks for having me.
And Scott is he does a lot of stuff. He's an Iowa State graduate. He's the host of Iowa Outdoors on IPTV. He's a teacher at Drake. He does so much stuff around the community. Scott, thanks for coming in, and we just want to talk to you quickly about kind of what these Iowa Nice videos are and kind of how they started. So what's kind of the story behind the Iowa Nice and maybe the Cyclone Nice and the Hawkeye Nice videos that are kind of...
Well, it started now many years ago, 3 years ago, when Brendan Dunphy and Paul Benedict and I got together and we started making film. And so we did, and we started with a project called Valentine Road, which is about Iowa in the 1930s, and we just get to go around and we kill a lot of people and shoot cool guns and save pretty girls. And that turned out to be a pretty expensive project, and so we started to focus more on shorter media, and we came up with these cinematic moments, something that Paul came up with, and one of them was a Valentine Road project. And then Paul happened to be driving around listening to NPR during the caucus time, and how they were describing Iowa did not sound anything like what he knew Iowa to be.
Okay.
And so he had this cussing going on in his head, and he thought, this is funny, I should put this down in a script. So he put it down, sent it to me, I read it, and oh man, I was crying, I was laughing so hard, especially towards the end, the we wave because we're nice sort of thing. Oh man, I was laughing so hard. So we threw that together on December 31st. Well, we started filming on December 31st, then stopped to party, of course, and then finished it on January 1st, and then by January 2nd, we were way up on the count of YouTube and Rachel Maddow, BBC, CNN International were calling, and that started down this road. And right away, of course, everybody said, hey, will you make a sequel? Will you make Iowa Nice 2 or whatever it would be called? And Paul and I didn't quite have that in us. I reference always a story, the Pixar guys, when they did Toy Story 1, everyone right away said, do Toy Story 2, and they just said, we don't have that in us right now, so they did A Bug's Life, which was very successful, of course, and they eventually got to Toy Story 2. That sort of thing, not that I'm comparing ourselves to Pixar yet, but we went through and instead started filming a pilot episode for our new TV show called Marooned, which is about two actors from the coast who get stuck in Iowa. It's a mockumentary like The Office or Modern Family. Eventually, though, we always had these different Iowa Nice videos, Des Moines Nice, for instance, or whatever it may be, but we never pulled the trigger because the timing wasn't right, the script wasn't good enough, or for whatever reason. And then we just had the idea for the Iowa, or for the Hawkeye and Cyclone Nice, and we said, this is it. We knew it. So we put that together. We went to Iowa City and Ames, respectively, and put them together, and within about a week of them being aired, ESPN called us up and said, hey, could we use these?
That's awesome. So have you always been kind of a sports fanatic, kind of a sports guy?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I grew up in a household that is very sports-oriented. Grew up as, I know it's a bastardization to say, but I grew up in a Hawkeye household, but very supportive of all of the teams in Iowa, Iowa State, UNI, and then I went to Iowa State and, of course, became a huge fan. My very first appearance on ESPN, actually, here's a little story for you, is me and my buddies, Ben Hall and Mike Hoffenberg. We went to an Iowa State basketball team, got there real early, of course, and underneath our shirt we had painted our entire bodies red and yellow with ISU, and we got it on ESPN for about 3 seconds as they're coming out of a break. So I mean, I became a huge sports fan. Also, I'm a Cubs fan and a Bills fan, which I know.
I'm sorry about the Cubs, by the way.
Hey, talk about the Bills too. I mean, I don't know why I picked the terrible tragedy that is both of those teams. As I just came here, I will just watch Ryan Fitzpatrick throw a terrible pass for an interception to lose to the Patriots. But anyway, that's besides the point. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is something that I guess in a way I didn't know I've been practicing for my whole entire life.
So talk a little bit about what goes into making these. Did you film it all in a day, was it kind of thing, or was it kind of thing that you spent weeks planning it and just one day shooting it? Was that a pretty big ordeal? Yeah,
no, I mean, most of it's kind of a guerrilla style approach to filmmaking. Iowa Nice, we filmed over 2 days, and Paul wrote that script. And then when, with Hawkeye and Cyclone Nice, I wrote those scripts relatively quickly, and then we filmed them each on 1 day given. With the now scripts for the ESPN, where we're doing twice a week, what happens is I write them on Sundays, and then I send them to my co-writer, Nick Ronkowski is his name, And he goes through and changes, adds things that I've just left open because I'm completely on block for. And then we go back and forth. And Paul, who's not a sports fan at all, really, he goes through the last kind of bit when we're together, and he's kind of our last stop. Be like, this totally doesn't make sense at all, guys. And then we kind of have, it's just a great team writing aspect. And so then we film them all on Monday night, the Wednesday and the Friday segments usually. We film them all, and then Paul edits them on Tuesday or Thursday, respectively.
Did you ever think that when you made Iowa Nice that it would lead to Hawkeye Nice, to Cyclone Nice, and then maybe even to ESPN?
Yeah.
Did you ever expect getting on ESPN with these
No,
things?
I mean, the thing is with Iowa Nice, we thought maybe it'd go viral, and for us that meant like 10,000 hits, you know? We didn't realize what it really meant, the national and international attention it got. With Hawkeye and Cyclone Nice, of course, we had a better idea of the reach of the videos. So I did write them in mind. The smack talk at the end was directed to hopefully start a national conversation between all the schools across the country, and school pride and whatnot, hoping that that would maybe get it. Maybe we'd make it onto a Jim Rome show or Mike and Mike. They'd just play it for one day, whatever it may be. So the fact that they came to us and said, hey, will you create regular programming for us, I mean, that I had never considered. So it's one of those things. Our approach has always been just kind of go out and make as much as you possibly can into the universe, and then hopefully somebody will notice.
So obviously we are an Iowa State program here, so we got to ask you about the Iowa State football team this year. Kind of an interesting year for Iowa State. They're one win away from a bowl game, but so what have you kind of taken away from this season? Is it kind of an up year for Iowa State? They've lost, a couple in a row. So I want to get your thoughts on Iowa State.
Yeah, I mean, with the difficulty of the schedule, I find where we're at right now not disappointing at all. The one game is probably the Texas Tech game, which that's the one that still hurts a lot. But it feels like so far we've gotten to the place now where we win the games we're supposed to, the Texas Tech with the exception, and we've lost the games that we probably shouldn't have won. I'm still waiting for that big Paul Rhodes game where he wins the game when he's not supposed to.
Some people might say that was the TCU game this year,
yes,
which was
you're right. Yeah, absolutely. I was hoping, of course, it would have been one of these last 2 weeks, but maybe it'll come in a bowl game against a bigger opponent, because I think we definitely can take down Kansas. I think we should, if not be favored, it'll be a toss-up game between West Virginia. So if we can run the table there, maybe we'll get into a bowl game where we can beat somebody that we're not supposed to beat. But this, by no means, I do not feel down about this year. Actually, I feel very hopeful, especially with the new facilities opening up and the infrastructure that Jamie Pollard is really putting out there. And of course, Paul Rhodes is, I put him on the same level as a Les Miles as far as excitement that a coach can bring to a game and how he can motivate his players. I can't imagine that there's any other coaches out there that people want to play for more than a Paul Rhodes. And so I feel great about the future of the program. Moving forward, of course, it might change if we lose to Kansas, but I don't think we should. I mean, it's always hard to get up to go down to Kansas because there'll be about as many people as went to my flag football games in 6th grade, where I did score a touchdown in the final game, just so you know. So it is hard to get up for those games. And I don't know, Charlie Weiss is an innovative offensive mind, so maybe he'll have something up there. But I really feel confident where we're going. And
well, Kansas is an interesting program right now because they are just coming off an overtime loss to Tech.
Yes.
And they played Texas very well at home, too. So they're a team that Iowa State really can't look past, in my opinion. I think it's going to be a close game, though. I think it's less than a touchdown, in my opinion.
Well, I hope you're wrong. I hope that. But I wouldn't be surprised. Absolutely. I mean, as I just said about Charlie Weiss, I mean, the guy knows how to bring an offense. Now, will we be able to manipulate that defense that's a little bit weaker? I hope so.
Okay, we got a few quick questions for you before we let you go. Steele Jantz or Jared Barnett, right off the bat?
Oh, boy. I mean, can we combine them into one and create another Seneca Wallace?
Like a Sam Richardson? We never know.
That's right.
Like Steele Jantz, he can move around the pocket.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jared Barnett can run the zone read. So we haven't seen Sam Richardson, but what we hear from coaches that he can do a little bit of both. So.
Well, hey, maybe that's the future of the program.
You never know.
I mean, for right now, I mean, I like the Steele Jantz's ability to just take a game and all of a sudden he's a streaky player, and if he can get that positive streak going, I mean, he's a lot of fun to watch.
Okay, you were an Iowa State grad, so when you were here, it was Dan McCarney, Paul Rhodes. Who do you got? Who do you like better?
Of course, I don't think we are where we are today without a Dan McCarney. So there is a place in my heart for him, of course, and what he was able to do. I mean, when he's here, we went to a bowl game for the first time in a long time under him. I mean, so I have that heartstring pull for him. But like I said before, there is nobody more than I'd want to coach my football team than Paul Rhodes. I mean, his passion, his intelligence, and the fun aspects that he brings to the game, opening up the playbook, and you don't know what's going to happen.
Yep, exactly.
I absolutely love that.
Does Iowa State make a bowl game this year?
Yes, absolutely.
Did the Iowa Hawkeyes make a bowl game this
Absolutely
year?
not.
Two more games left for the Hawks.
No, it's brutal, man. I'm surprised they beat Michigan State. Unless, of course, the weather turns terrible over the next 2 weeks and maybe it becomes a sloppy game like it was in Michigan State. But, I mean, right now there's just no enthusiasm. People are, like we said last week on ESPN, people would rather clean behind their refrigerators than watch the Hawkeyes. I hope that over there they can pick the program back up. It's only going to help Iowa State with that. But we'll see. I mean, right now it's going to be a long off season for Iowa, and it's going to be a shorter one. And it's really great when you have that bowl game and you can get those extra practices in. That's really underestimated in pushing a program forward.
Sure.
Iowa's not going to have that, and they have a really young team. Iowa State's going to. I mean, right off the bat, I say that's already worth 3-4 points in next year's game.
I almost feel bad for them for losing so many running backs this season.
Oh,
they just
they're on like the
figure it out.
5,000th running back over the last 7 years.
Injuries,
it's brutal. Other things that are going on.
Other
yes,
problems,
absolutely.
yeah. One more thing. Who's going to win the national championship this year? Do you think it's going to be Kansas State out of the Big 12?
You know, I know this is going to seem a little bit bold, and I still like Alabama's chances, to be honest with you.
Wow.
And that comes, I must say, Tom Arnold's been a great acquaintance over this. Yes, absolutely. And that was his idea. And I thought, you know, I could see that next week Kansas State going down or going and losing at Texas. I can see that. I could see USC beating Notre Dame. That just leaves Oregon. And if it comes down to Georgia and Alabama in that second spot, I can totally see Alabama getting the vote. So.
Scott Siepker, he's the Iowa Nice guy. You can follow him on Twitter.
That's right.
Scott Siepker. I'll give you a little plug there.
Appreciate it.
Yep, and he's give us your YouTube channel again.
Yeah. If you go to youtube.com/Iowa Filmmakers, you check all that out. You go to scottsiepker.com. I've put every single ESPN spot that we've done.
Perfect.
We promote Iowa State every week. We always hit on Nebraska, which is always fun. So check all that out.
Yeah, go check it out. Really good stuff from Scott Siepker and the Iowa Filmmakers. Coming up next, Dean Berhaugall and I are going to talk a little bit about the Iowa State men's and women's basketball team, so stay tuned. You're watching Cyclone InCYders.
So I hear you think you know something about Iowa State University. You're about to get schooled. You think we're just a little old agriculture school in the middle of the cornfield. Guess that's why CNN Money ranked Ames as one of the best places to live in the country. Do you need help getting your foot out of your mouth? Our agriculture school is a national leader, but so are engineering programs. Aerospace, civil, chemical, materials, all rank in the top 20. Chugga chugga choo choo. I already told you about the first digital computer, invented right here. But I didn't tell you that Iowa State was part of the Manhattan Project. How many world wars has your school won? That's what I thought. Pull that spoonful of Jiffy out of your mouth and give homage to Iowa State alum and peanut pioneer, George Washington Carver. Without him, jelly never would have reached its full potential. To all my ladies out there, do you like to vote? Well, send your thanks to Iowa State in lieu of Carrie Chapman Catt, who blazed the trail for women's suffrage, and you're right, just shattered glass ceilings all up in misogyny's business. Voted the most dominant mascot on earth, Cy leads the way at all the Cyclone athletic events in the Big 12 Conference. There's been a lot of shake-up in the Big 12, but nothing brings people together like the age-old tradition of smack talk. And lucky for you, I know a little something about it. Oklahoma, your state is shaped like an upended toilet. No, wait, that's what it is. Oklahoma State, you're welcome, Alabama. Texas, you're in Bob Bosley's house now. TCU, a poor man's Texas, if the poor man's loaded. Kansas, trying to outdouche Nebraska since 1854. Kansas State, the place you go when a black hole just doesn't suck enough. West Virginia, the Shelley Long of Virginia, regretting you ever left. Cheers, Baylor. Texas Tech, Lubbock is named after a Confederate soldier. I guess we know where your culture of losing started. And that leaves us. Nobody riots better than Iowa State. That makes 10 schools in the Big 12. I guess Nebraska's academics are still lingering. I'm out. One more thing. As you craft your reply videos, remember, this ain't about hate, it's about love. Go State!